Hello everyone, welcome back to the Second City podcast. It's just me this week, I'm afraid. I had a chat with Callum this week, and our schedules are just a little bit off this week, so it's a little hard to find a day that we could both do, basically. But I still wanted to jump on and just give my thoughts on everything that's been going on at Blues this week. I know it's been a very busy week, and as I said on the last episode, could be a really defining week. Had some really big games as we look to close in on the top six potentially. So we had the Leicester game and we had the West Brom game. So I just wanted to jump on and give my quick thoughts on that. We're going to have a little catch up as well with a Baggies fan later on as well, James, who's contributed to the show before, to get some opposition perspective on Tuesday night's game as well. So yeah, loads to talk about still. So it might be a little bit rough around the edges and just me giving my thoughts and so on. But don't worry, I did see Callum. I actually saw him on Saturday night after the Leicester game. A load of us went to Bongo's Bingo, and he was in good spirits, Callum was, and he even won a special prize, so well done, Callum. Delighted to hear about that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, jump. So yeah, well done, Callum, on your special prize there. Before we get into the last couple of games at Blues, just wanted to, of course, start with the big news that came out this morning from the club. I'm recording this on Wednesday night. Some news came out from the club this morning regarding the chairman, Tom Wagner, who is unfortunately suffered from a stroke recently. The club released a statement to say. So huge, bit of a shock, really, I think it's fair to say. But the statement is pretty positive, thankfully, in the circumstances. It says, thanks to rapid medical intervention, he received immediate treatment and is now receiving excellent care. We are pleased to share that he's making a good recovery. So yeah, that's some encouraging news in the circumstances there. And so mine and Cam's thoughts are both with Tom Wagner and his family at this time. And Tom, hopefully see you back at St Andrews at Knighthead Park very soon. Okay, so on to the last couple of Blues games then. We'll start with Leicester at home on Saturday, where of course we won 2-1. A first goal from Ibrahim Osman being cancelled out by a lovely strike from Abdel Fattah, it must be said, before Jay Stansfield finally ended his goal drought in the second half to secure the win. I was actually pretty impressed with our performance in this game, I must say. Obviously, there's the caveat that Leicester played 2/3 of the match with 10 men, with Bobby De Cordova-Reid being sent off in the first half. And of course, their 6-point deduction the day before, no doubt, maybe would have had an effect on them going into this game, I'm sure. Obviously puts them right down there in relegation trouble. Really mad to think that just 10 years on from their Premier League win, 5 years on from their FA Cup win, Leicester very realistically could be in League One next year. But regardless, I was never really in any doubt that we'd win the game, I must say. As it was going on, I was pretty convinced by us and convinced that we were the better team of the two. Osman, again, with his pace, caused trouble all game on the left-hand side, and the other new signings, John Solis, Carlos Vicente, really impressed, I must say. Vicente was making his first start for us. I got to say as well, Bright Asai Samuel off the bench, thought he played really well, and it'd be great to see what he could do now, coming off AFCON. Obviously, he's just got back from AFCON with Nigeria, where they had a really good tournament. He had a really good tournament. And I hope we start to see some of the form that we kind of expected at the start of the season. I feel like he's not really got going at Blues just yet. Not been terrible by any means, but hopefully he can become the sort of solid, dependable starting right back maybe that we thought we'd get when we signed him in the summer. So that was a positive result against Leicester, and thanks to other results going our way, it actually put us 2 points off the playoffs places. So it's living proof that a couple of weeks really is a very long time in football. I remember thinking after the Stoke draw just a couple of weeks ago that it really felt like it was all starting to slip away from us this season, the possibility of getting in the playoffs. But now all of a sudden we're finding ourselves right back in it. And because both Blues and West Brom are playing in the FA Cup on Sunday, obviously Blues are playing Leeds, I think West Brom have got Norwich. They moved our fixture, which was scheduled for Saturday originally. They moved it forward to the Tuesday, which meant that Blues would be playing ahead of a lot of the teams around us in the league. And so with a win, we actually had the potential to go into the top six. Yes, we would have played a game extra, but what a mental what's the word? It would have been such a mental advantage. I don't know, is that the term? It's much better to have the points on the board than have the game in hand, in my opinion. And I think it would have just really, you'd look at the league table and be like, yeah, we're in the top six, even if it's just for a couple of days. It would have established we are very much still in this. So yeah, I was really excited going into the West Brom game and the potential that it held for us. And the Baggies fixture for me is it's our biggest game of the season on paper, our biggest fixture. Obviously Villa is our big rivalry, but for me, the next one in line would be the Baggies fixture. I know some people would say Wolves, but honestly, I never really grew up around Wolves fans. I never really knew many of them, in complete contrast to all the Baggies fans I knew, family and friends. So the Baggies game was always meant a lot to me, and I know it does to, most, like all Blues fans. But yeah, for me, after Villa, the Baggies one is the big one. And I've definitely got a lot of, fond memories of this fixture. The last two home games against these in particular have really stood out. They've been like real party atmosphere Friday night games, both in 2023. The first one was a 2-0 win with the Hannibal masterclass, and then the second was that 3-1 win later on in the year. It was John Eustace's last game, actually, and it was capped off with that Gary Gardner free kick at the end, which was absolutely unreal. Another one which also stands out as a very early Blues memory for me is when we beat them 2-0 in the Championship in 2006 with Gary McSheffrey scoring both the goals. The first one was a free kick, and the second one he sort of, from my memory, sort of dinked it over the keeper at the very end in front of the Tilton. And I even have the programme from that game here still in pretty mint condition, which is pretty nice to see. Yeah, that's a real sort of core Blues memory for me, that one. I remember being sat in the family stand that day, and really great memory as we went on to get promoted under Steve Bruce, of course. So obviously in the end it all felt like a bit of an anticlimax last night when we drew 0-0. A weird one. So technically does only leave us 1 point off the playoffs, but it also feels like a huge missed opportunity, I must say. But let's start with some positives. A clean sheet again, I guess, is a positive, and we're now actually 8 games unbeaten in all competitions, 7 in the league, not lost since New Year's Day when we played Watford. But I said before this run of fixtures, going back to start with the Stoke game, so Stoke, Oxford, Leicester and West Brom, I saw no reason why we couldn't win all 4 of those games and get 12 points. 3 of them were at home. They were all against 3 of them were against teams below us. One of them was against an injury-ravaged Stoke team that was near us in the league. So to come away with 8 points rather than 12 is by no means a bad return. It's a pretty good one, in fact. But I think in the circumstance, we really could have set a statement by going out and winning all 4 of these games, or even winning 3 out of 4. And as a result, I don't know if it's ending on this draw against West Brom, and as we're about to go into some tough fixtures in the league, I don't know if it all still feels like we didn't quite set the tone. We're on an unbeaten run that's really good, but I don't know if we're not yet in that. You talk about a winning run where you really charge up the table, and I don't think we've quite done that just yet. And I must say, I really feel like there's a huge playoff-shaped hole waiting to be filled by a team like us this season. And Callum even said that last week. With teams like Leicester and Southampton coming down from the Premier League, but not really living up to the high expectations that you would have of them, it's really opened up the league this year so that some lesser fancied teams like Hull or Millwall can be right up there. And there's no guarantee that same opportunity will be there next season. I mean, look at Wolves. They know they're coming down, so they've already signed a top Championship striker in Adam Armstrong to prepare for it. So there's going to be a lot of strength and a lot of wealth coming down from the Premier League this year, and I'm pretty confident they'll put up a better fight than some of the relegated teams have so far this time. Although, obviously, Southampton are improving a lot, and Ipswich are up there. If you think next season we could be having, Wolves coming down with signings like Armstrong, and even like a West Ham could come down, that'd be really crazy. So next year could be really tough, really, really tough. But going back to the Baggies game, that's not to say we didn't have our chances in the Baggies game. In fact, it's the total opposite. We arguably should have had a penalty in the first half for a handball on the line. Obviously, there was an unbelievable goal line clearance in the second half. Marvin Duck had a great strike, very well saved by Max O'Leary. We hit the post right at the death, and of course, the real controversy of the night was August Priska's 95th minute winner being disallowed. I cannot describe the bedlam in the Tilton when that goal went in. So to have it disallowed was like, it really stung. It really, really stung. It would have been one of our moments of the season to look back on if it had stood. And I really can't describe how it really hurt. I don't really use that word that much, I don't think, in football, because it is only football. But yeah, it really stung, I must say. For some reason, I don't know if it was because it was a big game, a derby, under the lights, but this game did just get under my skin a bit more than most, I think. It was certainly the most animated I've been at a game for some time anyway. Look, I can see why the goal has been disallowed. Obviously, it was the main controversy of the night. Demarai Gray was judged to have been in an offside position and therefore interfering with play. It feels harsh, but I suppose under the letter of the law, the officials have their justifications that they can stand by, and there is an argument to disallow it, as painful as it is to admit. It's the same with the handball in the first half. I as far as my knowledge goes, I believe because it technically hit off another body part first and then onto the defender's hand, it isn't judged as deliberate handball. But I would argue, and as I'd imagine most Blues fans would argue, his hand is literally stopping a certain goal. So I think we've got a right to feel aggrieved about that one. And maybe it's the rules that need looking at. I actually wouldn't be surprised with that one at all, though, if the officials just didn't see a handball at all, and we're all debating the intricacies of the law and so on. But it's probably just the officials probably just didn't even see it. But I actually think of the two, we've got slightly more reason to have an issue with that one. As much as the disallowed goal stung, I think the handball is the one we really could be aggrieved at, I think. And yeah, I was very, very drained by the time the final whistle went, and it just left me wondering how on earth we hadn't won the game, and again, what a missed opportunity it was. I don't know if any of you remember a few years ago we played, I don't know why this game springs to mind, but we played Derby at their place, and we were 2-0 up until very late on, and somehow ended up drawing 2-2, and Christian Bielik, of all people, scored an outrageous bicycle kick and was basically the last kick to salvage a draw for them. I'm pretty good at not letting football bother me too much, as I say, and kind of moving on from it fairly quickly, but I just remember after that game, for some reason, it was just in my head, and I just had to go for a walk, just to kind of detox from it a bit. And I actually felt pretty similar last night, I must say, which is pretty uncommon. Not like down about it as such, but just like overwhelmed by it, and really like it just really on my mind, I must say, because I'd enjoyed the game. It was a good game, but just had to just try, and it was just in my head a lot, how we hadn't won it, and the disallowed goal and so on, and how much that stung, as I say. Tactically, I thought some of Chris Davis's subs frustrated me a bit. I didn't think Dux was at his most effective last night, and I didn't think Stansfield was either, but taking him off, I really felt cost us some energy up front, and I actually really felt we were screaming out for Kyogo as well as Priska, honestly. I know Kyogo's not, he's not been prolific for us this season, far from it, but we know what he'll bring, and I actually really felt towards the end of the game that energy and that press was what we really needed. And Davis has done so much right at Blues in his 18 months or so that he's been there, and he deserves so much credit. But I think at times he can just be a bit of an overthinker. I don't know, and he's such a stickler to his principles and the way of playing and so on. And I honestly thought at times Baggies just had us sussed last night. We were trying to play out from the back, and the Baggies press just every time worked, and then we just end up having to hoof it long, and we all know James Beadle's kicking isn't the best and so on. But we just did it over and over and over again, and yeah, I felt like it just, they had us sussed, they really did, and I'm not sure Davis showed last night an ability to adapt in the moment. I felt like our subs were like for like subs. I didn't see like a tactical switch up when we needed one, really. We had the chances to score, of course, but we were playing against a team that haven't won under their new manager, Eric Ramsey. They recently lost 5-0 at home to Norwich. They lost 3-0 away to Portsmouth. So I still think we've got a right to feel frustrated. And on a side note, on the tactical thing, was it just me who thought it was odd that on our attacking corners towards the end of the game, Priska would be, when he came on, he would always be like just beyond the front post, which kind of meant that he was uninvolved every time, because the ball would, if it's Tommy Doyle or Wagner taking a corner, more often than not, they're looking to plant it almost right on top of the goalkeeper. So it meant that Priska was never really involved. The only time he was involved was the one that led to the disallowed goal, where he was far more central and far more of a target man. So I found his positioning really strange, and it was obviously a tactical thing because it was happening every time. But look, I'm not an expert on set piece setups and so on, so I'd be interested to hear what the logic is behind that one, if we're ever able to find out. But yes, look, it really feels like 2 points dropped, and despite our home form still being very solid, we've only lost one home game all season. We do seem to have had a few matches lately where draws could and should have become wins. We've actually drawn 5 of our last 7 home games now. But I also can't say that West Brom didn't fight for it. I said that they kind of sussed us a little bit. And whilst they didn't really have the chances that we had, I'd argue in the first half they were very much a match for us. And I think Peck going off, again with a shoulder injury, unfortunately, for the second time this season. So I hope that's nothing too serious. But he's definitely going to be out for a little bit. but that really hurt us in midfield, losing him. And I feel like, especially in the first half, the Baggies somewhat overran us at times. Tommy Doyle's a quality player, but I really felt like he wasn't able to stamp his mark in the middle of the pitch, and you could tell him and Solis hadn't really played together all that much and worked out that relationship. I definitely can't say Baggies didn't look like a team fighting for their lives and fighting for their manager, as they need to, obviously, to stay up. And I do think as well, when we look at it as a broader picture, you know, the Baggies fans in the stadium towards the end of the game were clearly happy to leave with a point, and I do think that maybe says something about how far we've come and how solid our home form is. I mean, this was the first home league game all season where we've not scored. So, you know, so that is maybe something to be proud of. You know, it's silver linings, but it's something to take into consideration that a team that for years, you know, we went years without beating Baggies, and they were leaving Blues last night happy to get a point, and that says a lot about what a fortress maybe St Andrews has become. Even if, you know, some of them draws should have become wins, as I said. But how about a bit of Baggies perspective now? I mentioned that James, who's a season ticket holder at the Baggies and a friend of the show, would be giving us just some opposition thoughts. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago giving his thoughts on the start of Eric Ramsey's tenure and so on. So let's hear from him now, his thoughts from a Baggies perspective on Tuesday night's game.
Hi lads, just a quick couple of thoughts on the Albion Blues game last night. I think the only places really to start are the two big decisions that have effectively meant that West Brom walk away with a point. And they're two decisions that have gone our way, two decisions that it feels like it's a lifetime since we've had any of that sort of fortune. And it's very welcomed, to be honest. I do think technically both decisions are correct. It's just one of them ones where it's depending on what side of the coin you're on, you're either screaming for it or you're saying, "Oh yeah, that is a correct decision." I think the handball on the line, you'd be screaming for it if you're Blues, wouldn't you? You know, but I don't think only a couple of Blues players have seen it. The referee's clearly not seen it. It's all happened in a millisecond. It's it Styles on the inside of his leg and bounced up. He can't do anything about it. His arm's in a natural position. And then the goal, the lad's in an offside position. He's sort of half jostling with the keeper before the header struck. He is in the way. It's just unfortunate because the header's, you know, a really good header, isn't it? It's you could argue the keeper ain't getting there, even without the lad in his way. A couple of thoughts away from that though, from an Albion point of view, after the start that Eric Ramsey's made as manager, the 5-0 home defeat to Norwich, the 3-0 away at Fratton Park, where he was getting, you know, the chance against him and the players were getting absolute, you know, booed and all sorts at full time. I think it's a result that is, you know, I think when I sat down last night to watch it, if you'd told me we'll get out of this with a 0-0, I'd have snatched your hand off, because I think everyone in the world thought we were going to get beat, especially when the teams were announced. Albion's squad is extremely thin and very lightweight at the moment. The manager's had to change his tactic. He come in and wanted to play this back five. We conceded 12 goals in his first 3-4 games, and he's changed now to a back four. Mowatt's now back in, who's been not fit. Mikey Johnson's not quite fit. He hasn't had a good start, Eric Ramsey, in terms of the players that are here. We are in a bad spot, and I think that point, you know, I think when I was just speaking to you then, you said something about Albion players look like they wanted it more. I mean, they certainly gave a lot in that game, whilst not really giving much going forward. We didn't really fashion a proper chance, but we had a few half chances, and I think we, especially for the first sort of 70, 75 minutes, I think we played well in terms of when we competed. I think the last sort of 10, 15, Blues started to take control. Obviously, some of the substitutes that can come off the Birmingham bench are a lot better than what we can bring off the bench at the moment. Like I said, Mikey Johnson not really fit. Daryl DK, he's not scored in about 6 years. We're really struggling at the moment, and the point is a huge point. It could be a turning point. It could be one of them ones where it gets a bit of confidence. We go to Norwich at the weekend in the FA Cup, and it's 3 weeks after they beat us 5-0. And I think it's another one of those tests of the character in that squad. And go to Carrow Road. They did you 5-0 at the Hawthorns. Put it right, basically. Put it right. Obviously, it's not in the league, but go and put it right. I'm really pleased with the result last night. I'm desperately pleased. I think we got a bit of fortune, absolutely, but we definitely. I'm struggling to say deserved it, but it feels like, from an Albion point of view, take away the refereeing decisions, it felt like it would have been dramatically disappointing and harsh if we'd have walked away with nothing last night, with the goal line clearances, throwing bodies in the way. Really, showed a lot of character, and that's what we want to see. That's what they need to show for the next 14 games or whatever it is to get us out of this mess. So, yeah, sorry for the long, complicated rant, but there we go. A bit happier than the last time I spoke to you. See you later.
Cool, thanks for that, James. As I say, always good to get an opposition perspective, so we do really appreciate that, and definitely some fair points there, I think it's fair to say. But with Blues, yeah, look, positives. We are still only a point outside the playoffs, albeit having played a game more than most of the teams around us, and we got a big game on Sunday against Leeds, so that's something to look forward to for sure. A chance to kind of give everyone a lift again. And, look, we're not out of this race by any means yet, and again, more positives. The new signings are still continuing to settle in well. I thought Vicente looked great when he came off the bench. Solis maybe wasn't as effective as he was against Leicester and against Oxford, but look, he's really stamped his authority on this team still. And it's also great to see Damari Gray back fit and on the pitch as well, let's not forget. Despite, obviously, his unfortunate involvement in the goal at the end, I'm delighted to see him back and ready to contribute towards the end of the season. So yeah, they're just some of my thoughts on the last couple of games at Blues. Maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 1 step back would be a good way to put it. But yeah, look, I feel like I've been quite negative in this episode, but I think last night's game, as a lot of people will probably feel, was a little bit deflating. But we can still do this. I think if we are able to beat Leeds on Sunday, that will give everyone a huge lift. Then we got some tough games in the league against, I think we've got Norwich away, Millwall away, and Borough at home, I think, are our next 3. So they're 3 really difficult games. But we'll maybe learn what we're all about in them games. Norwich are in shit hot form at the minute, had a great result. They've got some new striker in. They beat Oxford 3-0 last night, and some new striker who's scored like 4 goals already for them. But we'll learn a lot about ourselves, I think, in them 2 away games, Norwich and Millwall. Have we really got over this away day hoodoo? And if we have, then yeah, we're very much in contention still. So yeah, they're just a few of my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching though. Let me know, in the comments, your thoughts if you have any on the direction Blues are going in, the Baggies game. What did you make of it all? And we'll be back very soon with. I'll be back with Callum with a bit more of a normal episode. Well wishes again to Tom Wagner. Take care and hopefully see him at St Andrews again very soon. But until then, keep right on.